Good evening. Welcome, friends and honored guests. For reasons that are not entirely clear to me, I've been asked to chair this evening's festivities. I think that Billy Crystal didn't respond to his invitation. This afternoon was about science. Edsger, have a nice day. So this evening will be about non-science. Some old friends and colleagues will share with you recollections of life with and without Edsger. I certainly remember when I first met him. I was a brand new assistant professor at Cornell, and he was my idol, and I was scared to death of him. Grease introduced me. He was sitting in David's office reading some memos. I walked in and I said, "Professor Dijkstra, it's a great privilege to meet you." And he looked up and said, "Yes, I'll bet it is." He was in town because we were going to spend the next summer teaching together at Santa Cruz. Grease had agreed to give a one-week short course on what David called science of programming and Edsger had called discipline of programming. And the series was sold out. So the organizer, Bill McKeeman, had decided to get a second instructor, and the backup instructor was Edsger. David was going to have one class, and I was his assistant. It's a good way to learn the material. And Dijkstra was going to have the other class, and Wim was his assistant. Well, a day or so into the class, I was sitting in the back of the room dozing. I assume Wim was sitting in the back of Edsger's room dozing. And Edsger said something. I wasn't there, I don't know what it was, but the earth moved. 5.6 on the Richter scale. So now you're going to understand why I have trouble believing that anyone who says Dijkstra is someone who's resigned or retiring. The man is clearly capable of neither, and that's what we love about him. Let me now introduce our first speaker. There once was a David of Greece, whose friendship would give you no peace. For his rhythms and rhymes, scribed to mark happy times, brought constant invites for speech. Greece?
So you probably don't all know that yesterday was Edsger's birthday. I think it was his 70th. Let's not clap. Let's sing him happy birthday the way Americans do. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Edsger. Happy birthday to you. Many of the computer scientists who have influenced my life are in this room. Well, Sir Anthony is not in this room, but he will be here tomorrow. But there's Donald Knuth and Wirt, Misra, and I might even mention the youngster Schneider, just to name a few of them. But none has inspired me as much as you-know-who, Edsger W. Dijkstra. I've walked much of my career in his footsteps, although I do admit to straying away from time to time, much to his dismay. My text, The Science of Programming, is probably better called Dijkstra for the Masses, because all it did was try to make palatable for undergraduates what he had done so well in his research monograph about 4 years before that. I've not always been a fan of his. My first sight of him was in Garmisch, Germany in 1968 at a famous NATO conference. Doug McElroy gave a banquet speech there on the use of components, which we heard were so bad today. I also remember this one guy, I didn't know who it was, very strange, walking around in his bare feet or socks on, pausing every once in a while, saying a few words, pausing again. I had no idea who it was, just that it was a little bit strange. For the next few years, I tried to read the work of this guy called Dijkstra, and I didn't know it was this guy in the stocking feet. And I just could not understand very well what was going on and what his point was. It just didn't come to me the way everybody else said it was good, but I didn't know. Then chance, I guess it was chance, placed us back to back, teaching at a summer school in Maryland. He teaching operating systems, me teaching compiler writing. I listened to his lectures. Elaine, my wife, and I taught Edsger and Rhea how to throw a frisbee, which had just come on the scene a few years before that. And that week was an eye-opener for me. Watching her perform, talking with him, talking with Rhea, thereafter I had no difficulty reading Edsger's work. In fact, it was fun, and it caused me to change what I was doing drastically. He tried to pick a fight with me once, an intellectual fight. I came down with a copy of my book on compiler writing, and he started opening it up to the chapter on runtime storage administration, and he said, "I don't like the way this is written." And that's because he had more than anybody else to do with the development of the stack and runtime storage administration. And I said, well, you know, it could have done that. I could have done it much better. This was my first attempt. It'll be much better in the second edition. And that floored him. There was no fight. He had nothing he could say to that. He visited us that fall. He stayed with us. He had just learned about his Turing Award, which he got that fall in 1972, and I'm proud to say that he started writing it, his Turing Award lecture, in my office. Ever since, my wife and I have enjoyed and benefited from the friendship of Edsger and Rhea,